available to, thank you. And it will be available to be viewed on YouTube as part of the Crouch and Open Studio website, I think. It will also be, there'll be a lull in July and August until there's another conversation in September. You're all very, very welcome to donate any small amount you like to the Just Giving website down below, where it pays for materials for our community projects, which we hope to be carrying on doing over the summer. Huge welcome, and I'm going to pass you over to Sarah Barker-Brown and Jukka Kettunen.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for introduction, Jana, and it's a privilege to be here.
Yes, yeah, it's really good.
Our work.
So, how have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. Like we finally kind of coming out of the lockdown, and things are getting a bit brighter in the lives now.
Yeah.
It's very exciting times now. How about you? How you been coping?
Yes, it's
during these two lockdowns in the UK.
Yeah. I think I was thinking back when we were talking about doing this and about the first lockdown and how my practice has shifted actually over the last, year or 15 months. And initially I couldn't, work at all for about 6 or 8 weeks. Just felt it was.
Was it from the beginning or the after or?
Yeah, I think it was the beginning. It just I felt sort of disconnected with my work, and there was all these other things going on, and trying to sort out. It was fearful, and didn't know anything. What was going to happen. I think.
Yeah.
So I started. Yeah. I mean, the thing I did was I painted some of the NHS heroes. That's what actually got me re-engaged with my work again. And so I'm going to share my screen now.
Please.
I'm going to try. Bear with me, everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. And so actually, this is the first painting that I did after the NHS portraits that I did.
Beautiful.
And it's called Waiting to Swim. And I painted it whilst I was actually waiting to swim, waiting for the swimming pools to be open again.
Yeah.
And I think that what was really interesting is I wasn't really aware of it at the time, but these backgrounds, and I've done several of these, the backgrounds are completely emptied, stripped out, and unanchored to any place or time. Yeah. And I realized that it was a sort of reflection of the weird experience of time, in 2020. It was like, it was so strange, wasn't it?
But it's interesting because like your work, because I know your previous work very well, and it's how it has actually evolved and given new direction completely.
Yeah.
And it's like you stripped out the background, you used to use loads of patterns before, and now you kind of gone really beautifully into negative space, which actually kind of really emphasizes your court moment intimacy on that.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was almost like the conscious bit was to be focusing totally on the females, the people.
Yes.
And the connect. If there were 2 or 3, and it's actually about the relationships between, because it felt so. That was the thing that sort of brought me into sort of big focus. At the beginning of lockdown, is like how we couldn't have those, intimacies or with people, and that you never in a million years would have thought we wouldn't be able to have. So
yes,
that was if I had to sum up last year, that was a big sort of shift for me to actually kind of go, no, nothing to do with the backgrounds. Actually, it's the connection.
And it's actually interesting. It's interesting because like I know that you have a designer background like I do, and actually for your work, like the latest work, actually really it really comes through, that sort of designer compositions and things like that, and it's more evident now in your work.
Well, thank you very much. I think I feel more connected to me and realise how important that really is about, and I think that it's allowed to come through more rather than sort of incorporating that sort of design side, perhaps. But I want to hear about you, Jukka. Tell me about, I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay, right. Well, for me, it was like the beginning. Let me try to sort this out. Share. So, obviously, it was like a really difficult time for everyone. You know, everybody freaked out about the whole kind of thing. And from beginning, for me, it was like all the kind of media bombarding, like all this doom and gloom, and it's coming from the social media, it's coming from the news, coming everywhere. And my kind of reaction was this: I wanted to kind of hide from it all, and like I just almost like closed myself from the social media for a while, and I just literally, obviously, we were in lockdown, and I just escaped into my little garden, and I kind of cocooned myself into the garden to do some work. And I think in terms of me, I was quite productive from the first lockdown. I was kind of like, I kind of freaked out because I was I couldn't have access to my studio in Chocolate Factory, and I needed to build the kind of the home studio now, and I literally built it in the kind of kitchen and the garden, and I kind of like started interacting kind of in the garden and was cooking myself there, and you know, and that was kind of my savior really from in the first lockdown, and it actually reflected into my work. Like I started using a little bit more color. My previous work is quite monochromatic and quite dark, but I kind of started like using way more vibrant color. Maybe it's just to cheer me up, really.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, thanks. And what was I going to say? Yeah. I started like a slightly different process as well, because obviously you got all the time in the world. You're just like working from home like 24 hours a day, and I started like disciplining myself more and more, and I started doing more and more detailed work and focusing like on small details and stuff. So I saw that as a kind of like change in my sort of work. And for example, this one is like, this piece what's shown now it's I call it Less I Know It's Better, and it's obviously about the kind of I cocooned myself in the garden with the flowers, and you know, I wanted to escape from it, all the doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And there's a little detail about the detail work. I started going really into detail in my work, and the second piece I created on the first lockdown is this night gardener, because I went really obsessed about the gardening, and I literally spent there day and night painting and gardening, and that kind of idea came from there really. And
I was going to say, I love the way you especially with all your titles are like this. It's you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, actually, it wasn't before, but it became more kind of personal diary-like during this pandemic sort of thing. And like I kind of like I went more into that. I wanted to think a bit deeper what I'm doing, and I wanted to discipline myself what I'm doing, and I just wanted to kind of really focus on it, and actually helped me focus more because I just really went to it, you know.
Yeah, and your colors are just amazing. With the previous one, I suddenly realized that I think that yellow green is called chartreuse, isn't it?
Yeah.
That background. And I think it's so, I know we've mentioned this before, but you have this way of bringing something that is obviously old, you know, there's an age to something, and you make it really contemporary, and that chartreuse just makes it like right up to the minute for me anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers. So how about you? Like, have you got any more work
Oh,
to
sorry, yes.
share? Like, stop sharing because I know that you have been busy bee,
Well,
and I
what
want
I
to see
was
more.
what I was going to show actually was the first of the. Sorry, we're just the first of these emptied out backgrounds, which actually I did in just before lockdown. You know, in last winter,
Yes.
and this was a quite an unusual piece because it's very big. It's like 1.5 meters wide and 120 high, and it was the first one that I've done with this sort of washed out. It's not completely empty, but you know, almost.
Yeah.
And it was my sort of prize, but it was my reward for doing a whole load of very intricate work. And
Yes.
this I sort of saved this up to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to show you a little bit of detail there because
I absolutely love that way, how your work has actually evolved for you kind of leave it a bit open and
yes.
focus on the kind of like the necessary in there.
Yes, it's really interesting, isn't it? How it's something that looks so, and I know a lot of painters that I really like do this as well, but it just allows something for the viewer's brain to, I don't know, there's some, they have something to do rather than everything being, you know, laid out really, you know, sort of definitely. And actually I removed I didn't do lots of shading or, you know, blending or anything like that. I used really thick paint with linseed, mixed with linseed. And I really enjoy that. I wanted these sort of bold brush strokes.
It's absolutely beautiful. You could see the fluidity and the kind of like dynamism and all the strokes and kind of movement on it. And it's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And I have to confess, I have seen this piece live in your studio, and it's huge and it's absolutely stunning, and it doesn't come through the kind of photograph.
No, yeah, I think
because you can see the textures and the kind of fluidity of the elements, and it's just stunning.
I think also it was this sort of summoning up the sun. It was like in November, it was right, you know, it was like this, and I just wanted that joy, you know, that simple sort of joy, and because we create sort of imagined worlds.
Yes.
Even though they may have their sort of root in reality, I suppose that's the joy of it sometimes. I'm just going to very quickly move on to a piece that I started before lockdown and finished, started before and finished once I got back into the swing of everything, which is, you mentioned those highly patterned pieces that I do, and I still do them, but they make more sense to me now because the process of the transfer work is so fragile and unpredictable, which and so you never quite know what you're gonna have.
Exactly, and that it's quite interesting because like that's both our work. It's like we both use transfers in different forms and shapes and sizes, and it's quite interesting to see differentiation, how I use the transfer and you use the transfer, and what you get out of it and what I do get out of it. So it's
could you show us some of your, because I think your transfer work is exquisite. It's absolutely
oh, thank you.
You know, it's extraordinary.
I kind of use it in a way, like I use it kind of lots of different ways. I mean, it is old school way. Like, who does that anymore?
Yeah, I know.
But I do know, like, as you probably know, like, I enjoy the transfer work because it's almost like those little mistakes what you make with it, and it takes you in different directions every time. And you know, and when you do the transfer and take it off, and like it can be anything.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes it's like, wow, this is great, and sometimes it's like, oh my god, what have I done? You know? Yes, I mean, like I can show the process of how I use it. I'll share this again. Okay, there's another piece I did in lockdown. All of myself. That was another serious piece. Sorry, going to the process. So if I start before we go to transfer work, I'm going to talk about the process, how I kind of operate in my sort of practice. So what I do more and more now is I usually start my process with like just taking photograph, really, like of plants and obviously everybody knows from my style is I love this sort of Renaissance style, kind of iconic imagery and painting, and I absolutely love how they kind of crumble and decay over the years. And I just like previously I kind of like worked that in my mind, and I love all these fractures and decay and stuff, but I have moved a little bit more away from it, and I start doing more detail work lately. But usually I start with the photograph, and I sketch it in the painting or the canvases, and I start building the elements. Usually I'll start building the elements in the kind of Photoshop digitally, and then I Photoshop them, airbrush them, whatever, and then I kind of transfer them into the canvas. Like in this case, I do the framework, and then I just do the image transfers from the pieces I airbrushed and stuff. And I start building elements like that for it. Well, these are just the inspirational. That was me in the lockdown, looking at the kind of garden's perspective, and I went a little bit mental in there. I started taking colors from the plants, and I was like, there's my dog Roxy, by the way.
Yeah, cute.
And I really went to like into this plant world and like the colors, and like I've never done anything that colorful in my whole life.
Yeah.
But this was the process sort of thing, and I operate like I do the transfer work, and we talked about transfer before. I do transfer work. I absolutely love the process, because like it just crumbles and decays in the way I actually enjoy the old Renaissance paintings. But like sometimes I use it like I like on the image on the left is transferred, painted, is ready painting, and then I just decide, okay, that looks amazing, that little section of the work, and I take a photograph of that again, and enlarge that big photograph into digital print or something, and then I just start painting again and again and again, and I can go through this process for hundreds of times.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite difficult, but like that's how I use transfers, and like for you, like you're using in different ways, and obviously.
Can I show you my?
Yeah, please.
My mini movie. So I'm gonna. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a very short movie, a very quick short movie here, which shows you that. So basically, I draw out my figure. That's my main thing, and I loose paint my figure in. Yeah. And then this is what I did on this one. I haven't always done it, but on this one, I did then put this into the computer and do all the planning for the background on the computer, and then made my transfer. So you can, I'm just going to start it now. So you'll sort of see. So then the transfer gets put on. Yeah. Bits don't stick. Then I start painting again, and then so I'm sort of in this particular one. I've used the background. I didn't do any clothing, even though I'd sort of sketched it in. But I sort of formed her dress out of the wallpaper background.
I love that.
So I was sort of doing it, and I have to say it was a very long process, because I was painting and then wiping away. I'm sure you do all that, wiping away, then rubbing some more, and doing that, and it's the. I know it's sort of the same with you, but this looking at balance. So I'm just gonna stop showing that now, but the sort of balance of a paint, you know, trying to balance something up that you don't know how it's going to look in the end, because you're not in control of the colours. Well, certainly with me, often they're more faded than I expect, so I might have to knock back the body, or I might have to pop the body again.
But that's actually the beauty which I really enjoy doing, because it's that sort of unexpected sort of element to it, and that's how when you kind of work within art or something, sometimes those mistakes makes like the beautiful element to it.
Absolutely.
You know? So it's not perfect. Like there's sort of little elements you play with, this sort of little mistakes, but like it's sometimes difficult to find balance, how many mistakes you can put in one. And
can I ask you something? We haven't taught yet. I know your background is design, and no, to tell us what sort of design, but also, are you allowed to make mistakes in your design work, or do you know what I mean? Is it always?
Well, obviously, like I do commercial design, so you're not allowed to make mistakes. So, like I make these beautiful mistakes in the kind of like my art practice more, and you kind of learn. Obviously, you can't be perfect in any ways, anyway. So. Yeah, but I do have a design kind of. I'm an art director, and I do photography, and I still work as an art director and designer. But yeah, that's pretty much my background. But like the painting's always been. I always used to paint, and I used to do like graffiti arts, and from graffiti arts, I went to the kind of record cover designs and club flyer designs, and through that, I went to more in the kind of design world. But like you can see, some of my work is probably reflect that sort of graffiti art, because I still kind of use spray paint, and I just have that sort of freedom sometimes. I just splash the color.
And it feels it's so effective, that because I know you love icons and you love Renaissance art, and so it's almost like you've sort of got the opposite.
It is
wonderful sort of chalk and cheese mix.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like the Renaissance part for my interest is probably from my childhood. Like my past aunt, she was like a really keen kind of icon painter. Is it icon painter?
Yes.
Does it make sense? And when I was a little child, I always admired her kind of like detailed work, and how she used like gold leaves and things like that. And you know, I kind of learned. It's like I always did drawing, and so I really always admired. I'm not like massively religious, and she wasn't either, but she enjoyed that sort of style of arts, and I did too. And it kind of reflected into my work in a way, sort of thing. And I find the beauty through her, maybe.
Yes. No, it's a wonderful. Well, it makes it really contemporary, which is you know, it's not something sort of stuck in the past. It's got a reality.
How about you? You are obviously a design background, and how did you?
Yeah, I didn't have a formal art training at all, except I then, after academic, I went to university doing classics actually, and then I went to shoe college, which is what I really, really, really wanted to do in Hackney. And so I learned how to draw shoes. It was really weird. That's all we drew, and shoe after shoe after shoe after shoe, and
well, you can see that in your work actually. Like you can see. I mean, like, that's what I love your work, because you got that sort of designer composition. Is what you use in your pictures, and it's very kind of like designer, kind of elegant. There's elegance.
Oh well, thank you. I hope there is some real. I mean, I have done some real. You know, I also like the real as well. So it's kind of it's a funny sort of mixture. But and then I was in shoe design, and then I went back to art. Well, I went to art college about 10 years ago. So I learned how to paint. But obviously there's lots of things that sort of, it's very useful. They're different disciplines, aren't they? Design and art. There's, well, certainly with what I used to do, because there was a sort of eye on the, the end, I can't remember what you call it, but the person who's going to buy it, or, you know, and you need to be producing stuff that people want, and And even though there is that with art, I've learned very much that it's very important that I remain true to my vision,
Yeah.
and not get sort
Exactly.
of
That's exactly why I want to kind
Yeah.
of keep them separate in a way. That
Yes.
because I think like creating art and collages or whatnot, it's kind of freedom for me, and I want to keep it like that way.
Yeah,
I don't want to just pressure myself like into kind of too much.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's some freedom.
Shall I just share another image? I'm just aware.
Sure. Go for it.
Let me just. So, where are we? Sorry, everybody. Oh, there we go. It's done it. Did it on its own.
Oh wow.
So this is one that I've done this year actually, and it's a very similar process. Painted the body in, do it on the computer, then do the transfer work, and then sort of work into it, and highlight sort of areas and knock back areas. And for some reason, for these, it's quite on most of these paintings I've done, I haven't got a full face in. It's the body in the background. It seems to be the thing that is the most important thing for me. I don't want, because once you do have faces, unless they're very knocked back, it's where you sort of look, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're there to recognize. So actually, I think that was a sort of conscious thing, but I wasn't really quite sure why. But yeah.
But you can see that your design is very evident still there. There's almost like it feels quite fashionable, like, and the pose and the mood to it, but it's got more sort of art practice element to it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Love the buttons.
Shall I whiz? I can't even remember what's next. I'm just going to say, oh, this is another swimmer actually that I did after the other one, and it was called After the Swim. And I think we're going to talk in a minute actually, or maybe we've mentioned it already, but about, I don't know, I mean, it's sort of mistakes or
yes,
and mistakes or when something is finished. Which is always often the really big question, isn't it?
And
I made
when to actually stop, and
when to stop,
not to overdo. And I think you've captured, like in that picture, really beautifully those little mistakes, what turns into the little beautiful details. Really,
but I felt like it gave it a bit of a sort of movement, and my hand, and it was very fast painted. This leg was done so fast, and you can see the toes, and I just literally went blah, 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 and didn't even finish the big toe, and it felt when I painted it, and there was this moment when I sort of thought, shall I paint out those sort of sort of funny brush marks? Shall I get rid of them? And and actually, I thought, no, I like them.
You didn't.
I mean, there were some other areas on this painting that I did go into. Actually, not, but and that's, I really, if I could wave a magic wand about how I paint it, if I could control always how I painted, it would be like this. Or that little, that kind of section, big marks, strong, bold, slippery paint. And also you can see so I always draw out in oil mixed with tar, white spirit, and I can wipe it away, and it's like a bit like a water, it's like a watercolor, and you can, it's quite a nice. So actually, when you see it, the marks, it's okay.
Do you think now, because obviously that has changed, the lockdown has changed your work into that sort of little more stripped sort of direction? Do you think that is that something you would actually continue doing?
I think I've been painting like this because I sort of learned, this whole idea about mixing oil with linseed only. I learned that from Chantal Joff, whose work I absolutely love, and her work is really slippery. And so, where have you gone? Where's he gone? So I think I've been painting like this for the last few years, but I think having the nerve, I would call it that, to leave the backgrounds like that, i.e. unpainted or stark. But it just felt appropriate, you know, it just felt appropriate last summer. And you know, I just kind of, you know, you just do it and just sort of see. And so I like it. I'm going to stop sharing now because I think it's...
Well, I suppose it's like every painter, every artist is that sort of battle, like always, like when to stop, you know, when to actually leave and how to stop and like find that balance when it's the right time to kind of just leave it, you know.
Do
you get like, do you go back to your work like years after or something like that to kind of review it again and you just start doing it?
Think paintings that I mean, you know, paintings that I have not resolved and you've just had to, you either paint over them or you just put aside and in the cupboard, you know. And actually today, I brought out a painting that I did a year ago and I knew exactly what to do. It's so curious, isn't it? Sometimes you just can't resolve it and you just can't, it's just not right.
I've got exactly the same because I had a habit like over the years, obviously like back in my student times, and you know, I didn't have money to buy a bloody canvas. So I just literally painted over and over and over again until there was like this thick oil body paint over it. And I just throw them in some God knows where. And, you know, I actually recently find a few kind of paper pieces which I created, like, and I started doing them again. Like, and, you know, I didn't have a clue back then how I'm going to finish this. Is this ready? No, it needs something. I didn't know what. And it like just came, bang. 15 years after.
Oh my God, well, that's got to be a record. But I think also there's that idea, isn't there? And I've noticed it, the more work that I do, the more I realize that I work in themes and they're actually the same themes. It's just that when I revisit them, I've brought something else to the party, you know, because I'm another year older or I'm thinking in a different way. And so I'm sure that the shift through lockdown, you know, when you've got some time around it, you know, in 5 years' time, it might be, it's not like this sort of massive kind of change, you know, suddenly everything's different. It's like, well, actually, it's part of the, you know, it's a reflection of, it is a really big thing that's happened, I think. And I wanted it.
Huge.
I wanted it to make a difference in my work because I just thought, how can I can't.
But it's interesting because it naturally, I mean, like it came naturally, and it just like naturally like happened to me. But I don't know, some people might find that they couldn't work at all the whole time. Like I know a few fellow artists who just lost interest completely and they just did something else.
Gosh, do you think?
But for me, it was probably kind of like survival mechanisms. I just have to do stuff, you know. I have to discipline myself. Which happened like actually mostly like from the first London lockdown. I was really productive and I did loads of work. But like the second one was for me, I was like, oh God, I can't believe this is happening again. And all the exhibitions were cancelled and like events and everything. And it's like, why I'm doing this for? And I kind of lost like interest because whatever you do is never going to be seen or something. But,
what are you working on now? Is one of those, what are you working on?
Well, I'm working, it's quite a similar theme what I've been doing, like, and like there's a lot of plants involved because I've been doing lots of gardening. It's one of my inspirations because I normally go like galleries and look at the paintings, and traveling is a massive inspiration and nature for me. So obviously we've been like in our houses, so like the garden, like I'm very lucky actually I have one. Without that I probably wouldn't be here, you know. And it was kind of like survival for me, you know. I went crazy on gardening, and then I started like I actually realized like my work is actually going with it in a way that like I start thinking about the color combinations straight from nature, for example.
Yes.
I look at the plants, and I started planting some plants which I would like to paint or
Cool.
take it. So
So
it's kind of this weird organic cycle now, which I'm kind of heading towards, sort of thing. But I don't think I will lose that sort of human element in there. But like, I probably will still kind of use that sort of.
And do you think you will? Because I know maybe you could pull up one of your sorry, just reading something that you know, the work you were doing before, which was the very old sorry, the sort of decayed layered work,
Yeah, I mean,
and the recent work which appears less like that.
it is, but it's still evident because like well, it's maybe not on the surface too much as it used to be back in the days.
Right.
But it's still there, but it's a bit more subtle.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
And I still use those kind of like elements from that sort of, because I love that sort of kind of really decay and
yes,
sort of thing, and fading and weird symbolism and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
it's almost like, but there was that sort of simplicity or need to simplify, wasn't there? Because there were so many, you know, all these other things going on. I felt like that. I sort of think I need to streamline, I need to simplify, and that's probably another reason for knocking it out. But
I can see that in your work, because like you are getting very stripped and like it's less, and I think it's absolutely beautiful, the direction.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I will. I mean, I will be going on doing that because I like it. It feels like the focus for me is stronger on what I'm wanting to focus on, which is this sort of, you know, I don't know, connection, the idea of connection. I mean, it's the lives of women, right? And all the things that go along with that, interior and exterior.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
so we'll kind of see.
Yeah, but it at the moment it's obviously it's difficult to predict where your work is going to go, because I really enjoy that. Like from personally, I enjoy the like a decay and kind of how time has actually changed the kind of old masterpieces, and I was kind of studying that, and like I still like that, and I thought I would take it even further, and I had like a vision. I probably would go more kind of even more like simple, more kind of fragile, almost like a half abstract.
Wow, that would be so.
That was my kind of vision on it, and suddenly this lockdown happened, and I went completely different direction again. You never know where I'm going to be in like next few years.
Jukka, I think we've had. I think we're going to move to some questions now.
Okay, great.
Is Jana? Are you coming back?
Yep.
Yay. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for including us in your wonderful conversation.
Oh,
thank you.
We just need to have some time for the questions. So, which is, hold on, well, somebody who loves your initial work, which is stunning. And so a question is, Sarah, how did you begin this work, the Waiting to Swim?
The Waiting to Swim.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to bring it up. How did you bring a drawing, a photograph, or did you begin this work as a painting? Could you talk a little about the process of beginning it?
Okay, so I work like, sorry, I'm just going to, right, so this one. So I work from, I have a huge bank of images that I have collected over the years, and they may be out of magazine, newspaper, you know, just since for the last 45 years, I've been collecting images, and this was a little black and white image. And so that was my source. And then, so what I do, I draw it out in, you know, thinned paint, and which you can see in certain areas. I've left it again on the shoulder on the left hand side.
Can you bring the image back up?
So have I not done it?
No.
Oh, blimey, sorry. I forgot to share, didn't I? Sorry, everyone. Share screen. Sorry, everyone, for this. I think I've got it now. Right, there we go. Yeah, so waiting to swim. There we go. Yeah, so yeah, I painted out in thinned paint. Always do that, and then I just go at it with, you know, once I do actually spend quite a lot of time making sure that the actual drawing is, in my view, right. In other words, I want certain things to be believable. I really like the little knobbly bits, I can't remember what they're called, on your wrist. So making sure they're in the right places, and I don't know, the clavicles and things like that, and the knees. But I went very fast in painting most of the flesh of this, and then you know, painted the costumes, and on purpose left the feet very, I mean, I really like the mixture of the loose passages and of painting and the I think they call it clean, you know, the sharp bits, you know, that sort of contrast, and the bits left out and the bits left in. But I always I prefer working from photographs, because for me they are this wonderful springboard for me. So I've got something set in reality, if you want to call it that, a photograph or an image or something, and then from that I go into my world from that. I'm not doing I'm not wanting to do a representation of that, but it just gives me the most amazing freedom to work like that. So that's what I do now. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Hold on. Right. Okay, so another question from Ruben, which is, hi Sarah, did you paint these two women from life? You've answered that question. And were they separate and then painted together? Were they like a twosome?
With the waiting to swims. Sometimes I put, you know, figures together. Sometimes I change the relationship between them. I think I sort of moved these guys. We don't need to have it up again, but so no, absolutely not. And actually that's kind of even though I can paint from life, it's actually part of my practice not to, because then I then start having a relationship, you know, if you see what I mean, with the sitter or the other person, and I start becoming aware of them and all that sort of thing. So and that's important for me not to, because it interferes with what I'm trying to do, I guess.
Okay, so thank you. This is a question to Jukka. Your work's a mixed media. Can you go into more detail about what materials you're working with?
Well, that is a good question. I've got lots of different, usually I use acrylic paint. I use different sort of glazes, because I'm like, painting for me is about the surface, and when you look at it different angles, it kind of becomes alive. So I use lots of kind of different glazes. I use resins, I use oil paint, I use spray paint, I use image transfers. What else? Anything I can possibly find which actually fits the frame. But it's mainly it's acrylics and acrylic based products.
Okay, and then Jukka, another question: who amongst the Renaissance painters have most influenced your work? Who amongst the Renaissance painters have most influenced your work?
Well, I think it's got to be Leonardo, which is the classic. Like he's for me is kind of the kind of mother or the father of it all. And I still, obviously, I think Leonardo has captured this kind of like the innocence of the kind of human existence in a way, but what I really admire his work.
Thank you. And Sarah, You said you mentioned the painters you like. What are their names?
I know who's asked this one. Okay, so I have some crushes, which I've said before, but so Chantal Joffre is a great influence, and Marlene Dumas as well. Both of whom paint from photographs, and they're female painters. There's the great transfer. The woman who uses a lot of transfer in her work, and it's absolutely fabulous, is Judika Akunlingi Crosby. And thank you. And her work is extraordinary. And if anybody gets a chance to see it, do. And also, I would say Matisse. I really like his with the patterned work, and Jonathan Wateridge as well, who's a fantastic contemporary painter, and his work is amazing. So.
Thank you. And Sarah, could you talk more about your approach to scale?
Yeah, so I have in the past done miniature paintings, and I think I use scale as another sort of medium. So it's part of what you're trying to sort of convey, or not convey, but in capture. So I have worked on 2.5 cent. Well, in fact, I've worked on 2 centimeter blocks and painted on the top of those. And I've also, this other painting I did, and I think they were the miniatures were about involving the viewer, I guess. So you have to get up really, really close to see them, to see what on earth they are. And they were either sort of rude, or so you had a bit of a step back where you go right in and then you sort of step, or they were a bit scary, they triggered sort of scary things, so you'd have that sort of push, you pull. And then with the large one I did, I felt it was, I remember doing it actually, I painted it out and it wasn't big enough. My original drawing wasn't big enough. I sort of stepped back and thought, no, it has to be enormous. And I wanted the figures really enormous because I just wanted to be bathed, I wanted that effect, when you saw it all, and when I was painting it as well, I just wanted to be, absorbed into this space. And so often when you do smaller things, I mean, not those are the two extremes, but sometimes, when I do smaller paintings, like, 25 centimeter square or something, they're quite, it's very sort of intimate, isn't it? And it's, they can, well, but then big paintings can be tender too. But my normal, size that I work on is probably about, 80 by 60 or some, there. But I have in the past, and I would still do it if something required, something tiny. Then that's what that's what I would do. I quite enjoy the variety.
And both of you, Jukka and Sarah, can you tell us a bit more about the transfer process and your media?
You can go on that one, Jukka.
Well, I mean, just the how to make the transfers, or how I'm gonna. I think I covered that one previously, but I use transfers. It might be a starting point. Some part of the transfer can be like a starting point, or I'll start building things around it.
Am I right in thinking that I think they may have meant I think image transfer is, I think this is what they were asking. It is basically a way of transferring the ink from a printed, so from a printed thing, an image or something printed out on a photocopier, and it's a way you put a medium on that piece of paper, and then you put it onto a surface, and then you let that dry, and then this is the fun bit, right? Is you wet it. Well, this is the way I do, but you wet it and then you peel off the paper, but you don't, that makes it sound like it just peels off in one, you know, and it's all gorgeous. It's not. It takes a long time because you have to rub the damn thing. And actually, if you know, you can rub, and basically you remove all the paper and the ink is left, right?
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah. Is that
and the question was probably like, what medium do you use to kind of?
Oh, okay.
I use kind of matte medium.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, golden. I don't know if
Yes.
not advert, but I find that's really good.
Yes. It's like a water-based gel, right? Isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you? Now, Sue Eccleston says, as an art historian, wants to read so much more into the trajectory of Sarah's work from the readers' wives.
Oh.
Though the women seem empowered, they also feel the need to perform. Whereas these later works look like women who are not only empowered, but couldn't give a damn.
Yes.
Other women need to stick together, as Karen Brown says about friendship. Anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Sue. That's yes, perhaps. There's nothing left to lose, right? Sorry, what did you say about what Karen said? Was there a question in there, or was it just a comment?
Karen as talks about beautiful painting earlier, Sarah, about friendship.
Oh yes, well, I mean, you know, gosh, the female friendships. I mean, friendships. Forget about them being female. I mean, friendships are really. They have a life all of their own, don't they? In all their glory, and they have been so sort of, what's the word, reduced, I guess. I mean, obviously, you know, I think that's what I've really missed, you know, just casual, you know, that sort of spontaneity, the casualness of things, you know, and that's something that's really lovely, you know. No, female friendships.
Jukka, this is in your more recent work, the detail in the flowers and the choice to have them bleeding down. What was your thinking behind that choice? Personally, I find it so evocative emotionally and would love to know if it was a deliberate choice and why.
Well, thanks for the question. Everybody probably remember London lockdown from the spring. It was bloody torture, and it was like 30 degrees, and I was painting that painting in the garden, and it started like all the paint just like dripping down. I was like, I'm melting, so might as well my flowers will melt as well. So that was the kind of starting point. I don't know, I suppose. I mean, obviously there's some, I suppose you can find different ways to think about it. There's almost like, I don't know, can flowers cry? I don't know. But like, for me, it was, I was kind of looking at the, almost like that sort of crying element, because like some of my paintings like are little tears or something, and in like for example, the night garden has got little tears in the fence looking at the flower. So it was kind of a continuation maybe from that. So rather than persons crying, it was just the plant crying, I suppose.
Okay, thank you, Jukka. Can we look again at the two sitting swimmers and the lines Sarah has used and left for the leg? Sarah, can we?
I will try. Hang on, so. That.
I think so. Can you talk about them?
Oh, you would like me to talk about it again?
I think the person wants to, the two sitting swimmers and the line Sarah's used and left for the leg. Wants to talk again.
Does he mean the underpainting bits, perhaps?
I imagine, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what happens is I paint very fast in the first instance, because I like, you know, I like getting paint on the canvas or whatever, and then I move it around. That's my sort of, you know, you always have to, you know, bodge it about a bit, and to put it, you know, and actually, so these would have been very loose. I suppose that I'm talking particularly, you know, around here and around here with the paint, and actually right down here, and then also these lines, which are the underpainting lines of the shape of the leg. And so sometimes I paint those out, or have, you know, obviously have done, but actually I would have left those anyway, I think, but it was particularly this mark, this paint mark, and this paint mark. So it's like almost like a dry brush mark, you know, and it's sort of overspill, but there was something about them that looked a bit like a reflection. I don't know. Anyway, I sort of left it. I controlled myself and didn't tidy it up, and left it. That was it, really. But they were created right at the beginning, and then I sort of filled in with the paint, and then I would have gone back, particularly that one, you know, on the thigh. I would have just, I don't know, tidied it up a bit. But I just, in the past, that's what I would have done. But as I say, I decided to leave it.
Thank you. Now this is another question, because there's some confusion about, is the transfer like a collage? Oh, hang on.
It's a bit.
Or are you somehow painting this on? Someone is a bit confused about the process of transfer.
It is a bit like collage, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just I think it, for me, it's like more like a technique or something. How do you make a texture or pattern or some piece of you then stick it into your work? I think we're probably in the generations, like the younger generations probably don't know.
I know.
I think, you know, transfer. Like,
yeah, it was very prevalent, I think. Am I right in thinking this in the 50s and 60s? I think people used to use nail polish remover as the medium. Is this right? I think, and they would do it with magazines. So you have a magazine, and you cover a picture, you know, in the magazine or newspaper with the nail varnish remover, the proper stuff, you know, not the eco, the proper, you know, and you then press it onto a surface. And then, I mean, it's essentially, it's the same.
You could essentially say it's kind of like a printing technique almost.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. And could you both talk more about your sources of inspiration?
Well,
I think we've explained that it's, well, not explained.
I think we have kind of covered that, but I'm happy to talk.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say that actually, I think what we've both actually, so I don't mean to talk for you, but I think it's actually realizing that it's looking inside ourselves. Actually, is the dictate, is the sort of pointer, you know, to where you sort of go, and actually really well shown through the lockdown, I think, and it's sort of come out with our work. I you know, does that?
Yeah, for me, it's like, it's something what you kind of I suppose for me it's kind of like, on the other hand it's kind of like what you're surrounded with. Like, for example, like we talked about the lockdown and we couldn't get out of the house, so lots of inspiration for me personally came from the garden, the plants, like what I see and kind of experience around me. So I suppose that's kind of my personal view, where I take my inspirations, whether it's from galleries, whether it's from nature, but I suppose it's always something what you personally experience, whether it's a moment what you experience, or whether it's some beautiful thing you see around you or something.
Thank you. More questions about what transfers are, and this person says, are they like temporary tattoos? Which is another question, or are they a digital process? I think you've explained.
They're more like a digital tattoo than a digital process. You just use, sorry, I think this is right, but you use, it's the transfer of, well, in my case, printed paper. So you will do something on the computer, so digitally, and then you have to print it out. And that piece of paper is the thing that gets transferred. So the ink on that gets transferred onto, I suppose it is like a temporary tattoo. It's like the same thing, like when you go and get an image put on a t-shirt, you know, or a mug, it's sort of that process, except it's not perfect because it's so fragile. It's
quite fragile and
very fragile.
Breaks quite easily. So you'd be very lucky to actually have it completely without any cracks or something. And that's why I personally use it, because I love that sort of crackling effect and things.
Yes, it gives a feeling of history and past things.
Now, I'm not sure, can we have the spelling of that name, but I'm not quite sure which name.
I know.
Okay, go on then.
Okay, it is. I've got a crib sheet here. It's NJIDEKA, new word, AKUNYILI, surname Crosby.
Now this is Ruben. Hi, Sarah. Do you like Lynette?
Yes. Yes, I can say that as well. Lynette Yodom Boetche. I do. I also really like Jennifer Packer. So yes, I do. And Jennifer Packer is my new crush.
And is it possible to post the names of the artist inspirations? Perhaps post them on here. Oh,
do you mean write them?
Yeah. I don't know. Or
yes. How do we do that then?
On chat. I think you just add to the chat at the bottom. Maybe. Another job.
Do you want me to? Shall I do it now, or shall I do it at the end? Shall I do it now?
You could do it at the end, I think.
Okay.
But we mustn't leave until you've saved it.
I've done it. Okay.
And Claire said have to go, but thank you both.
Oh,
and lots of thanks and lots of thanks. Okay, do we have any more? No, we have no more questions. Is there anything else you'd like to say or carry on, or?
No, I'd just like to thank Jukka very much.
Yeah, thank you both, and thanks all the kind of people who attended today. It's been great and privilege.
Yes, a real honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, brilliant. Okay, we don't
see
have
you in Kettunen Open Studios.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody got any more questions? Anything else? Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you both of you. Thank you, Julie, who organized all of this. Thank you for everyone who attended. It will be available to see all 3 conversations eventually on YouTube through the Crouch End Open Studio website. You'll find out how to. And don't forget that if you feel like doing a donation somewhere, you find it goes to materials for the community projects, for the, there'll be ones doing, Lara's running a community project soon, I think. She'll tell you more. Okay, thank you everyone, and goodbye.